And we were at ABC Kalimani Church and Kangundo West, outside MCA's office. In Mwala, it was on 3rd June 2021, at Wamuni Baptist Church and Bioni Social Hall. On the same 4th June 2021, we were in Kadhiani Mitaboni Catholic Church Social Hall and Kaani Lions Primary School Primary Social Hall. In Mavoko was on 4th June 2021 at Mlolongo Chief's Trocodio's office and Joska Market. Then on 4th June 2021, Machakos, we were in Machakos. Venue was Machakos Social Hall and Makavet MCA's office. All at 10 a.m. Okay. Public views. Honorable Speaker, members of the public gave views during public participation facilitated by the Assembly on 3rd and 4th June 2021 in 2 venues each of the 8 sub-counties. The views of the members of the public have been summarized and presented below. 1. Section 5, Sabbatical 3, there is need to review timelines of 60 days for presentation of the waiver to the Assembly. Members of the public felt that such days were too many. 2. Section 5, Sabbatical 4 of the bill, which states that any person may apply for a waiver, there was need for the word person to be defined under the interpretation section. This will ensure that the bill was clear on what category of persons, natural or artificial, was subjected to the waiver. 3. The Act ought to include the criteria for waiving taxes, and the procedure should as well be made public and the categories of tax to be waived. 4. There should be a clause providing for persons who were unable to clear their debts during the waivers period owing to some challenges to be allowed to pay 3 months after the closure of the waiver. 5. There should be waiver. The waiver should be announced to all people up to village level, since publication and gazettement was not enough to make people aware of the waiver. 6. The waiver should be for a period of 15 working days. Number 3. Discussion of the bill by members of the Assembly. Honorable Speaker, the committee facilitated a discussion of the bill with all members of the Assembly on 9th June 2021. And honorable members gave their proposals. Honorable members observed that Article 210 of the Constitution was the basis of the bill, as it clearly stated that if any tax was to be waived, there had to be a law allowing that. The reasons to waive taxes should be something which was advantageous to the county government in terms of collecting more revenue. In addition, the honorable members observed that the Public Finance Management Act, Section 159, gave the powers to waive taxes to County Executive Committee member of finance and not the governor, and this should be the practice once the bill was approved. Honorable members gave the following proposals for amendment of the bill. The words "with approval of the Assembly" should be added to the end of sub-clause 5, Sabbatical 4, to ensure that the bill was not abused. The sub-clause seems to give the CEC exclusive powers to approve a waiver requested by an individual. Number 2, the period of 60 days given to present a proposal for a waiver to the Assembly in sub-clause 5, Sabbatical 3 was too long, and therefore it should be shortened to 30 days. 3. On the application for waiver to the Executive Committee member by an individual, sub-clause 5.4, there should be an additional sub-clause providing for an option of seeking a statement, bringing a petition or a motion to the Assembly for a waiver. Once the petition or the motion was approved, it can be forwarded to the Department for implementation. 4. There was a need to include a clause stating that any tax waivers given before the enactment of this law are hereby revoked. 5. There was a need to provide for persons with disabilities to be exempted of paying taxes, just as was provided in the national laws. 6. There was need to review subclause 7A on the period of 14 days required for publishing the intention of the waiver in Gazette before the intended date of waiver to be done before the bill was submitted to the Assembly. The publishing was for the purpose of public participation, and it should come before the waiver was brought to the Assembly. 7. Clause 7E, sabbatical E, should be amended to require the CEC to submit the request of the waiver together with the evidence that public participation was done and also the comments of the public on the waiver. There was need to include another clause to provide for publishing of the details of the waiver by CEC after approval by the Assembly. This was important as the Assembly may amend the proposal of the waiver. 9. There was need to provide a clause on discount for those who pay tax promptly. 3. For submissions of Department of Finance Revenue Collection on the bill. Honorable Speaker, the committee invited submissions from the Chief Officer, Finance Revenue Collection, via letter reference number MKSCA/PSC/CMM/FRC/Volume 84, dated 8 July 2021. The Chief Officer was also to appear before the committee on 26th July 2021 for discussion on the bill. The Chief Officer forwarded the following memorandum for consideration by the committee. The 60 days proposed for presentation of the waiver to the Assembly in Section 5.3 be reduced to 15 days. 2. We suggest that the term person in Section 5.4 of the bill be clearly defined. The section that states any person may apply for waiver, does this term refer to artificial persons, in brackets such as companies or other corporate organizations, or natural persons? There is need for clear definition. 3. In addition to the requirement to publish in gazettement as stipulated in Section 7A, there should also be requirement to publicize waivers in local radio stations and other local media outlets in order to ensure the information reaches the widest possible audience. 4. We propose that a clause be added to the bill to allow the CEC Finance in situations of emergency to issue waivers, then seek approval of the same within 15 days of issue of such a waiver. Honorable Speaker, the committee considered the proposals of the Department of Finance and Revenue Collection and made the following observations. A. The proposal to shorten the period of 60 days to 15 days for presentation of the waiver by CEC to the Assembly in Section 5.3 of the bill was too short to enable the House consider and approve the waiver. The committee observed that 30 days proposed by the members of the public was more achievable. B. That the need to interpret the term person and also be proposed by members of the public. The committee observed that even though the term person was the same as interpreted in the Constitution, there was need to provide for its interpretation in the bill for avoidance of doubt. C. That the waiver needed to have as much publicity as possible so as to achieve the intended purpose. Thus, the need to publicize in radio stations and other local media outlets. D. That having a clause to allow the CEC Finance in situations of emergency to issue a waiver, then seek approval of the same within 15 days of the issue would defeat the purpose of approval. The time period of that days provided in Section 5.3 doesn't mean that the waiver needs to wait for the 15th day. It can be approved even on the
30th day.
For the 30th day. It can be approved even on the second day. The CC needs to explain the urgency and marshal the Assembly for prompt approval of the waiver. The committee has considered the possibility of having the CC extend the waiver for not more than 30 days if there is good reason that more revenue can be raised. 4-0. Committee observations. Honorable Speaker, the committee considered the views of the public collected during public participation, memoranda submitted by various bodies, views of honorable members, and submissions of the CECM for finance and economic planning. The committee observed the following. 1. That the period of 60 days provided in subclause 5.3 was too long, as waivers were meant for expediency and financial advantage. When the waiting period for a waiver is too long, it may bring about uncertainties in revenue collection, whereby tenders may even stop paying taxes awaiting approval of the waiver. 2. That term person in the bill applied to both the natural and artificial person as defined in the Constitution, and there was no need to interpret it further in this bill. For avoidance of doubt, there should be a provision on the interpretation of the term. 3. The bill under clause 9 provides for making of regulations which will provide, among other things, categories of tax waivers and procedure of application of tax waivers. In addition, Section 7 provides for public participation, whereby the County Executive Committee member will be required to make the waiver public before forwarding the waiver to the Assembly for approval. This means that there is no need to have clauses providing for categories of tax or procedure for a waiver. 4. Members of public requested that persons who are not able to clear their debts during the waiver period due to some challenges be allowed up to 3 months to clear their debts. The committee observed that this proposal will defeat the purpose of the waiver, thus it was not admissible. However, the committee observed that the CC may be given some powers to be able to extend the period of the waiver by not more than 30 days, if in this opinion that such an extension will assist in collecting more revenue, or there were circumstances that interfered with the period of the waiver, such as system failure, staff strike, among other reasons. The extension should be reported to the Assembly within 15 days of such an extension. Members of public also proposed that the waiver be announced up to the village level. The committee observed that the CC should publicize the waiver widely, thus the need to provide for use of radio stations and other local media outlets. Number 6. On the proposal by public that the waiver should be for 15 days, the committee observed that each waiver requested will have its own period depending on its objective or targeted client. Number 7. In subclause 5, subarticle 4, which provides that any person may apply for the
Stephen, one thing. If it's a clause, then it is a sub-clause. If it is a paragraph, it is a sub-paragraph. Article, sub-article. Order, sub-order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Number 7, in subclause 5, 4, which provides that any person may apply to the CC for a tax waiver, the committee observed that the subclause seems to give the CC powers to approve waiver solely, and thus there was need to add the words with approval of the Assembly. Number 8. On the proposal that a subclause be added after Section 5.4, providing for seeking of a statement, bringing up of a petition, or moving a motion in the Assembly, the committee observed that these were ways of representation and were well provided in other laws, including standing orders, and did not require a provision in the bill. The committee further observed that it was important to have a transitional clause that any waiver which may have been granted before the enactment of the law be revoked. Such waivers are not as per the provisions of Article 210 of the Constitution and Section 159 of the PFM Act. Number 10. On the proposal that the bill provides for exemption of waiver to PWDs, the committee observed that the PWD Act was sufficient and it was already being implemented and PWDs were not